buongiorno, anch'io farò l'intervento in inglese. Okay, so as we have said, I will talk about some of my works that are related to public installations, and I selected the works that can be interesting to develop the concept behind this work. Behind these works, I imagine that it would be similar to the one of the installation you will be doing in Kernel Festival. So this is a bit, as Gisela said, I will be your tutor. And the main concept behind all this is to use a media screen, an LED screen, not as a device that is interesting for the visual content, but for the light that is emitted by it. Okay, so we are using the light from screens, which are a technological device that we always see day by day around us. I am starting this talk calling it the virtual window, connecting to the architectural side talk said by Gisela and Marcello. So, and I have developed this new idea of considering screens a window after doing my works in, for example, the slide you see here represent a work that I've done in Luce, Helsinki, at January this year, one of the festivals that also Marcello talked about. In fact, the name, it's not mine. The name is also the name of a book by Anne Friedberg that talks about the theory behind windows, virtual windows from, let's say, from the Renaissance to these days. Okay, I would start asking, what is a window? So for me, a window is a device that limits two different spaces. So we are used to physical spaces like inside and outside a building, as you see here in Opera's painting. And a window is also a light source. It means that if you have light inside, it can go outside. If you have light outside, most often goes inside. For example, this is the most typical situation where you have light coming in a building. So this is why generally we make windows. There's a video, okay, it started. I don't see it on my screen, but we see it there. You also see light that comes out from windows outside. This is a video I made maybe 15 years ago when I was living in Switzerland, and I kept as reference from window going outside. Okay. So we have this interesting device of the window, who is a light generating source from inside and outside. So now the basics of all this presentation is that the screen is a window. It is not a window between physical spaces, but it's a window between physical space on one side and a virtual space on the other side. It can be, and the virtual space is typically a media. So, and this is the concept that I want to develop with you. So imagine that when you have a screen, you have a window, and consider that as a window that is emitting light. Okay. So I am supported by this theory by two wise old men. One is Jan Dibetz, who is a conceptual artist and a photographer, and this is one of the senses I always use in my presentation here at Gisella, and he said that a photograph does not reproduce an image, it records variations of light. So with this part, we understand exactly what a media is. A media is a way to record light. Of course, we are most of the case we are also interested in the image you see, but technically it's purely recording light, and that's also the name of photograph. It means writing with light. So it records light. And Paul Virilio, a French philosopher, who's also helped me to define this concept, has written on an article about 20 years ago, or 15, something like that, images have become a new form of light. So this is both sides of the concept. You record in media light, and the screens or images are a way to bring light back. So you have both processes. You record light and you bring it back with media. This is the interesting part that I want to develop. If we see here, we see some case of indoor screens that are emitting light. If you look at the surroundings of what happens, the screen is illuminating the space. And I would like to take advantage of this concept. Outside, we have a very specific situation here in New York. Imagine like if these are windows, imagine in buildings. These are buildings where instead of the windows getting light from the outside to the inside, here we're getting light outside from these virtual windows. So if you think it in this way, it's I think it's an interesting way to see it. And if an architect is putting a screen on a facade, he should be aware of this, that the screen is not just to see, but it's also illuminating, like a window would do for the inside. Okay, now I will show you, for example, how light can travel through media, can be recorded, for example, in a movie, and then we see how it comes back to light again. This is a slide from Vertigo, from Alfred Hitchcock, and we have here a neon sign, who is what we consider a typical light source, and this neon sign illuminates the scene of the movie, and in fact the whole movie, the whole frame of the movie is green because of this neon sign. Okay? Then when you project the movie back, what happens that the movie does not just happen on the screen, because the screen bounces back in the room the same color of the neon sign. So I've developed a sort of technique where I make some pictures of the wall, for example, of a white wall in the room, and if I do it like one picture per second, I take, for example, in this case, these shades of green. Okay, and then I make a small software that makes a composition, sort of collage of lines, vertical lines, where you can see the variations in time. In this way, you can see what happens to the light of your room, because it's changing in the media. Okay, so for example, in that scene of Vertigo, this here, all the shades of green you can see. And because the camera is moving, it's not like a static thing, but you see these variations. So in fact, media is changing the light of the space because it's a movie, because it's a moving light in a way. Okay, or you can consider it because it's a light that coming from that window. So like during the day, you see light coming from outside, always changing because there are clouds, because it's night and day. Here it's because of what happens in the media. And here, just to give you an idea, what happens in all the movie altogether. No, we just focused before on the green part on the right side, but here you can see what happens in all the movie. Then I will show you other movies, but I will not interrupt the concept. I will show you later other movies. So what happens, one way where I applied this concept, one occasion where I applied this concept, I think 2 or 3 years ago, Ilkka Paliomeni, I think it's like that, we call it Ilkka because it's a Finnish name and always difficult for me to pronounce, show me this screen they just put up in Helsinki, and he told me, well, if you want, you can propose me a work for this screen for our festival. He sent me a video with some content and some advertising, because this is 12 by 12 meters, so quite a big screen. And what I noticed immediately is that the screen was not just showing the content, but all the space was affected. For example, this is a movie I made this year in January, and I show you a bit of advertising and what happens. Look at the snow below the screen. What happens when it's moving? You see that it continuously changes color, right? So in fact, it's really what I've been noticing from the video he sent me. And I made a sort of the same concept I show you on the wall on the snow, and here you see all the quick changing in color of the snow because of the screen. Okay, and so this is to show how variations of the light in the city. So what the situation here is a bit like we have in the night in the city this type of light that is a little bit artificial and very fast. So my intention was, let's try to put back in the city a sort of night light that we would expect. So the idea was to take the moon as a light source and put it on the screen, on this big screen. But one thing I didn't want to do is to just put an image, because an image, if you see the moon like this, it's like you're always attracted by the image and forget about maybe the light. Since my concept was the light, in fact the work is called Moonlight, I made an algorithm that takes the pixel of the image and continuously swaps 2 pixels at a time, in a way that at the end what happens is that the image of the moon is lost, but not the color. This is a simple way to make the moon disappear but keep the light. Okay, so this is also one basic thing I will do in most of my works, is where maybe I start from an image as a color source, but then the result it's light. Okay, the main result is light. So this would be part of the concept that I will ask you to develop for the festival. We will have something like a big screen, and you can do whatever you want with the screen, but keeping in mind that's not what you see directly, but what you present on the screen will affect the space. Okay. This is a bit the little program. I wrote a program to make this pixel swap. Okay. This is because I have a background in computer science, so for me writing a program it's easy. And I've used a software that is also used by artists and designers. It's called processing. It's a software where you can write code and make graphics. Okay, but here the algorithm is very simple. It's just take a random pixel, take another random one, and swap them. The color of here goes there, and the one there goes here. In this way, we make the moon disappear little by little. And in my work, I use the 100 moons. Then we will see. And the effect is like a bit like the old analog TV when there was no signal. And Nino Alfieri, who is here hiding somewhere, told me that when Lucio Fontana saw this, the first televisions like this, was very impressed by the result, by this sort of noise. Then when he showed the normal images, he was a bit disappointed, because he preferred this type of image than the random one. Okay, here we have a collection of all the moons that I've used. I've picked these moons from Flickr, looking for royalty-free images that I could use, and so I selected them by color and not specifically by the quality of the image itself. So if you see the single images, maybe some are like not perfect, but I was interested in what the result was. And here in the next slide, I made a sort of composition of the 100 possible hues of the moon. Okay. And here is one presentation of how was happening in the festival. And here I made again the video of the screen, or in fact of the light bouncing from the screen that goes on the snow. And here you could see that it was much smoother than the one before, because it was taken by like 90 seconds each moon, and it was slowly passing from one color to another very smoothly, and it was like more, let's say, natural and livable environment. Now, just to finish this first part of the presentation, we generally call this type of LED screens LED wall, but I think that we may have to change it in LED window. This is like a quick presentation of a quick concept that talks about the virtual window. Now I will go in details, showing a little bit more pictures of the installation to show a little bit the scale and how it was lived by people. So this is one image I like, because you had this sort of huge lamp made with a 12 meter by 12 meter screen. You see here. Okay, here is a bit the scale you see with people. And it's also happened that people were kissing in the moonlight. And because, one thing that I discovered is that the concept is important, but choosing the moon is also something that relates emotionally to people. So it's not just a color, but that the color is coming from the moon. And even when the screen is all scrambled, you still have an attachment to the moon, and having the moon so close to you, it was a sort of emotional for people and also for wolves. Okay. Here I have a small video that I made on how was in fact the process happening. So I start from the image, and then it dissolves gradually. Until it's completely like noise. And it stayed most of the time in this condition. So the moon just happens very briefly and here you see that it keeps coming back. From the noise you get the next moon. Here a detail. Then it stays for like 8 seconds, the moon. And then it becomes to dissolve again. This was my way to make something going from an image to pure light. This is one of the way I found, and maybe you find a different way for your installation. This is just to show you the concept and how I made it. I made it with software because that's what I do best, but you can also do some things in Photoshop or in 3D with any tools you like, even like doing manually and making pictures of it. So for the installation you can do like what you want in a way. The important that you deliver a file, like a video file. We will tell you the size, and yeah, this is just a way to show you one way I did it. Okay, So you see there are different colors and different sizes. For example, if the moon is small, it makes less light because the rest of the pixels are black. Okay, I think it's finished. And a couple of weeks ago, I've been asked by another festival in this one time in Norway to bring back the installation. There we had a smaller screen, and anyway, this is an independent festival with a lower budget than a capital like Helsinki, but it was still nice, and I basically remade the video for the size of the screen that was different, but it still worked, and also here people were kissing in the moonlight. And also here you can see with this a little bit exaggerated moon blast, the quantity of light that you could have. There were people like eating there, somebody chatting. So in fact, this screen was in fact really getting out a lot of light. Okay. Because I think you were maybe interested in the concept of recording light variations, I have some other movies that I introduced before, just to give you an idea on how light varies in other movies. So we have 2001, An Odyssey in Space, La Grande Bellezza, and this is Amélie. I think in Italian it's called Amélie, and it's all orange. If you remember the movie, it's a bit orange. And for example, The Graduate. I don't know if you remember, but there was a scene in the swimming pool, and you see that the swimming pool, that's very cyan color, and that cyan color is going back in your room. So this happens. Then we have other movies like Dreams by Kurosawa, who is movie made by episodes. So different episodes have a different mood and different colors. And going ahead, we have Fantasia, who is a cartoon, very saturated colors and saturated light. Plus we end with the Rocky Horror Picture Show, who is also very colorful. Okay. After this, I'm introducing another installation I made some years ago, not many, maybe 5, for another festival called Luminale. It's in Frankfurt. And I'm starting from a couple of paintings from Monet this time. And we have the Japanese bridge and the water lilies in his garden. This is in 1897. And like 25 years later, he painted the same scene like this. So there is a bit more abstraction and more like the impression of it, and I would say more of the color than the content. And if we see what Monet also made, he made installations of painting because that was the technology he had at the time. So I think that he might have been interested in bringing light. We know Monet is somebody who studied light. His paintings, like the subject, is a sort of excuse to study light. And so he's clearly making these very long paintings that would bring you in the space and most probably in the light of the painting. And my ideas for the festival, since we have this 20 meters long road, is to rent a display, custom-made display, like 20 meters, maybe by 1 meter. A very long display that can light all the road, all the street, but not very high, we just need it as light source. It will have resolution like 3 millimeter pixels, for example. So it will be like 1 meter or half meter even by 20. So this could be our sort of canvas that we can use to make light in this space. Then we can enter in detail of what can we do with it. Okay, you can make a light moving, for example. Since it's long, you can make light move from one side to another, or keep it from top to bottom is less interesting because it's very short. So you can make a smooth thing, or like Marcello said, even a very flashy thing. That's up to you. Anyway, going back a little bit on this installation that was inspired by Monet, and I've used these big pixels instead of using the small pixel. I've used like this pixel that I placed on a facade of the gallery where I exhibiting for the festival. And this is the first concept of putting this big pixel on the wall. The pixel is something like this. It's a cube of like 10 by 10 centimeters. So it's a big pixel. So again, here is a sort of pixel concept, as we saw before, but the pixel here is very big. It's very big, and I laser cut the frame. And in this case, I've used an image of a wisteria. For Italians, glicine. Easier, because sometimes names of plants are completely different, so I also say it in Italian. So I developed a sort of pattern of pixel that take the color from a pixel in the area of the original image. So for example, this is 12 by 5, and I divided this image in 12 by 5, and the resolution is much higher of this image than the one we have later. So I developed an algorithm that picks a random pixel from each area and brings it back in the pixel. So this is moving, and it's moving, but the pixel comes from the original image in the same area. This is another way I've used to transform an image to light back. Here you don't have the risk of seeing the wisteria because the resolution is much lower. And here you see it in place, and also here. And why did I choose the wisteria? Well, also because close to it there was a real one, that it was not blooming yet. And here you see it a little bit together, where there is the wisteria, the real one, and the sort of digital one. One is visible during the day, the other is visible during the light. Okay, one thing again about architecture, you can see that I made my panels integrated with how the architecture was made. You know, these sort of lines of the architecture, I respected in a way that you could, it's sort of integrated in the architecture. And you can see it also, for example, here, during the day, it's white, and it's a bit mimicking the architecture, no? Okay. Here is a small video that shows you a bit. Okay, one other thing I haven't told you that how does the light move? How does the light change? How fast does it change? In a normal plant, you would expect that the wind is the thing that makes the wisteria change. In fact, I had a wind meter. The speed of the wind is determining the speed of the pixel change. So faster the wind, faster the pixel change. Okay. This is another way to transform that I use in a festival, because we're also focusing on festivals somehow, to transform media into light. Okay. This is not a festival, it was just starting with the concept. It's a work I made in an exhibition curated by Gisella. I made small screens where the content was depending on some images. Then you can see the details on my site. This is a bit to show one other way to see them. Here it was a 30 by 30 centimeter screen. And for example, the color is coming from some vegetables in this case. It was an experiment on vegetables. And that was the plant, and here we see all the installation. I thought it was different, but we will see later. So you see they move very slowly, very, very slowly, because I developed an algorithm that captures the light, the color from the image and puts it back in the display. I started using in this type of small devices, but Then I used it in a large scale in a festival in Tallinn. Tallinn, I've used it to project it on, with a video projector on a wall. Instead of making a mapping, it was not interesting to make a mapping, especially in this building. I made it a sort of experiment because I had other like 3 installations at that festival, so it was like an experimental project. And the idea here is to use as a light source a painting that was there from 1500, something like that, and use it as light source. Now I show you how, in this case, I transform light, media into light again. Okay. The title is called Flashback. Flash because it's something that's related to light. Back is when you go back in time on something, and we are going back in time because we are using the painting colors. Okay, the painting was this. It's a painting it's one of the most famous painting of the city, and it's interesting for me that it had this red and green colors. And here I have a conceptual slide that I'm not going to read now, but you will find it because this video is recorded. You can see it later. What I want to show you is the next one, who is a bit showing you how, in my opinion, lights can be transformed into medium. For example, what is the passage of light? You have sunlight of 1500 that it bounces on trees and clothes of people there. Then there is the painter, who is called Notke, and then he puts this in a painting. The painting is the medium. Then you have the sun of 2015, when I made it, it goes in the painting. So the yellow lines, the yellow arrows are light, photons, meaning bouncing from one thing to another. Bounces on the painting, goes in a photo camera, goes in the memory, and then the projector is bringing light back on the wall and the observer. So if you see, what you see in 2015 is directly related to the light of 1500. This is an interesting passage of, this is why it's flashback. It's like, when you are in front of this light, in fact, you are in front of something that happened in 1500. This was my theory. And to show you how I made it, so I cut the interesting colorful part. I put it one over the other because I was not really interested, and because my algorithm was working just for square images at the time, so I made it square. And then what happens is that I'm creating a random path in the image. It's like if you have a micro camera that scans the image and takes the color of a little piece and shows it. But here you will see it better here. Now there is a lot of light here from the lamps, but so you don't see the effect in this room. But from the image you should understand what happens. You see it's changing very slowly, and because the algorithm is traveling in the image and taking the color of the pieces, but it's also like taking into account the path he made. So so it's not just the single spot, but it depends on the path. It's moving because it's very slowly, and since there is not much contrast, you don't see it very well. Anyway, you can see it on my site, I think, also. Okay, what you've seen before is a painting that was that I made a picture of and I use it. But my next idea is that I will use in Monza. So while you do your installation, I think I will do mine also. So we will be in the same team. So like you will be several groups. I don't know, 6 groups for example. Plus I will do my installation also. And my idea is to develop the thing you saw before Interlin, the one of the painting, but the difference is that I would like to make it interactive. This is a concept that I developed with video projectors, not for the Monza, but I think I have to adapt it to the Monza one. So the idea is that you can place your mobile on a sort of camera that is there, and if you have a picture on your mobile, the camera will take the light and use it as color source. Like you place it here, for example, you place this image, and my algorithm bring back something related to your source. So this is the idea of that I used in Tallinn, but it's interactive, that people can come with their phone and bring it over, displays, and the screen changes, because there is a real-time software that makes the video. This is my proposal already.
I got you, man.
It's interactive. You go there.
This is new to me, guys, so it's a great way to teach.
It's a new way, so it's we will have a time slot, like the installation will last maybe 5 minutes each, I don't know, and then we'll repeat. One of these 5 minutes you will put your phone and it will change. For example, if you have another light source, another source, for example, you take these crayons, like broken crayons, and you will have something like this. But this is sort of an idea of what we would have for mine installation. I show you this so you maybe are inspired, or maybe you do the opposite. But at least you know what we're gonna do. This is, of course, the aspect ratio will not be like this, because as I told you, it most probably long and short, long and not tall, I don't know. And these are a couple of images instead of pieces of these LED matrix devices that I have on my desk, but here the pixels, what you will have. And here I'm already experimenting so that you don't have the image. Okay, I hope this helped you to understand the concept we would like to present as your work. I mean, this is using the screens as light source, so I hope it's clear. Otherwise, I'm here for questions.